What's up guys, my name is Fi and some of you will know me as another YouTuber and some of you will know me as Foxdrop's brother. Now while Foxdrop focuses on the jungle side of things, I focus on the laning side of things. So in this video I'm going to be covering all the changes that will affect you if you're a laner, and I'll be going over what those changes are and how they'll affect you in your own games going forward. So let's kick this off straight away with the first champion change, and that was to Grasas. Now these two changes aren't going to be the direct reason why you'll see more of Grasas in solo queue, and I'll go into that a little bit more in depth now. So the changes this patch are that his Q now grants vision and there was a range increase on his ultimate. The reason you're going to see him more is because of the rework recently. So Grasas is actually a pretty good support right now. He works very similar to a Leona. He has high health, he has sustain, he has a gap closer with a mini stun and an empowered auto attack when he lands that stun. And when you combine that with your ultimate that you can use for really good peel or engage as well, then you actually have a pretty well-rounded support utility wise, and so you will be seeing him more in your games. He's not going to dominate, and I don't think he's the strongest support right now, but he's definitely going to be able to be viable to play. So Jarvan's had two changes this patch, and one of them I think is going to have a much bigger impact than the other. His shield now costs less mana at every rank, which is going to be good for kind of just short trades in top lane and also when you're jungling, but the main change is that his passive auto attack now does more damage. It does have a higher cooldown, which means that you can't use it as often, but you will be doing more damage, and this is really good for the top lane or mid lane Jarvan. So when you trade with top or mid Jarvan, you want to use your passive and then use your Q. That's your basic combination, and it means now you're going to be doing way more damage. So it's kind of a buff to his early trading potential. So these Kassadin changes were definitely deserved. There's two ways you can play him right now, and both are really strong in solo queue because he snowballs so hard and late game he does so much damage. They basically just reversed the change from last patch where they gave him an increased AP ratio and base values on his shield. This isn't going to make a huge amount of difference because it's not really touching his damage, but they are at least nerfing his survivability late game. Now this Kha'Zix change is probably one of the biggest changes this patch because they've nerfed the one thing that makes him really strong, which is the isolated damage. Now thankfully they haven't actually touched the damage, which means that Kha'Zix as a whole is still intact, but what they've done is they made it so you can be further away from an allied champion and still not count as isolated. This obviously makes laning Kha'Zix a little bit harder to play, and when you're ganking someone on your own with minions around, you're going to be doing less damage. The other two changes are that now the turret acts as a proper ally, so you can't really dive as well because you won't be counting as isolated, and the stealth on his ultimate now has a 2-second delay instead of a 1-second delay. Now this 2-second delay is actually pretty huge in team fighting and 1v1 duels because you can't just run around, stealth, come out, proc your passive, Q and stealth again. You're going to have to kind of run around and be vulnerable for a little bit longer. So these Lissandra changes are just really a quality of life fix, but it's a quality of life fix that was needed because she's always been a good champion but so buggy that people stay away from her. One of the biggest problems with her before was that if someone started to use a movement spell like Jarvan's EQ or Lee Sin's W and used your ultimate, then they would still go to their destination and it will basically be a wasted ultimate. With this change now, it's going to interrupt that where they stand, and so it means that she has a little bit more outplay potential and is not a riskier pick as she used to be because of the bugs. Now these Malphite changes are pretty odd because I don't think he really needed the buffs, but they are going to be good and they are going to help him late game and in lane. Now he's going to have a better late game against poke because the shield will recharge quicker, and the W mana cost down in lane means that he's going to be good to scrap with bruisers a little bit more. If you activate your W and auto attack or use your E, you're going to be doing more damage, and before you couldn't really do this because the mana cost was too high, whereas now you actually probably can. So now we get to the misfortune change, and this is probably the most random change in the whole patch because they've added a AP ratio on MF's Q, so you can now play MF as an AP carry. I honestly do not know why they've done this. I don't think it has any effect really unless you mess up your runes. So the only bug fix that I really want to talk about is Rengar because the empowered Q now applies lifesteal. The reason this is good and the reason I wanted to mention this is because he's normally building Hydra or Blade of the Ruined King, or sometimes even both, and so lifesteal is really important for him when he's dueling someone one-on-one. So that's all of the champion changes wrapped up, and now we're going to move on to Summon a Heal and the Trinkets. Now, Summoner Heal no longer removes grievous wounds, which means that after you've used it, lifesteal and other heals are still going to be reduced by 50%. This is actually pretty big in comps like Nidalee or Lulu and Soraka, because the heals that they give after Summoner Heal mean that they're now going to be reduced as well, and it kind of reduces that huge teamfight potential and ability to keep someone alive who really should be dead. Now, these trinket changes aren't going to have as much effect in solo queue as they are in competitive, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail, but what I will say is that they're basically just anti-aggression now. It's gone from you can invade where the enemy has no vision, and so it's very hard for them to defend it, where they can just place wards down instantly and see exactly where you're going to go. Right now, what it's probably going to turn into is warding the entrances of your jungle so that no one can invade, and then if they do invade, you'll at least see them coming, and so you can go to their opposite buff and kind of equal it out. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, then feel free to come over to my channel where I release 3 or 4 videos a week, and subscribe over there to see more of me. Make sure that you subscribe to Foxdrop, and I'll catch you in my next video.